G'day and welcome to Media Tech Talk. I'm David Richards.
And I'm Paul Luckett. On today's show, we're continuing our discussion with OzTAM CEO Karen Halligan. And we turn the discussion to the TV industry itself. As we know, TV viewing behaviour continues to fundamentally change. In the 80s and 90s, the biggest TV shows in Australia were reaching 3 to 4 million people at the same time. Today, even the biggest programs are reaching closer to 1 to 2 million people, not because audiences have disappeared, but because they've moved to streaming, mobile, and on-demand across multiple platforms. And that shift has created one of the biggest challenges of media today. How do you measure it?
Our guest today is Karen Halligan, CEO of OzTAM, Australia's official provider of TV audience ratings. Karen is overseeing an organisation that has moved from traditional panel-based ratings measurement to now include sophisticated digital rating solutions that has evolved to now provide ratings for online streaming services like Netflix, YouTube, Disney+, and Amazon Prime Video through its Total TV and Total Video services. So here's the question. If audiences are no longer watching at the same time in the same place, how do you build a measurement system that reflects how people consume TV and video content? Hi Karen, it's great to have you back on the show again for the second part of this special series. How are you?
Yes, I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to have you back. And let's just jump straight into it. OzTAM, it sits right behind almost every major media decision in the Australian TV buying industry. How would you describe what OzTAM does today and how that's evolved beyond traditional TV ratings?
So if I would say in simple terms, like we use technology to measure what people watch. Like that's kind of the simple definition. We focus primarily on video, and we really focus on the more quality video. So, you know, broadcast quality content that people might be consuming. We have an array of different technologies and different ways of actually doing that measurement. So it's everything from the panel that you mentioned before, which still plays a role in what we actually do. We run a huge rolling survey on an annual basis to about 65,000 people, so we understand what devices are in people's home, what technologies they have, what they're subscribing to, and what that looks like. And then we also use a technology collection service that actually connects to iPads, BVOD, etc., and we get live census data from the broadcast partners that we work with. And then the last thing we do is we have a streaming meter router that connects to the homes, and it captures at a URL level all of the video consumption that happens on every device in a home. So that would be everything from mobile phone to laptop through your connected television set and also iPad. So there's quite a lot that goes into it, all with different sample sizes. To bring all of that together, and we use that to really form a view around what people are doing in relation to their video consumption behaviour.
I remember back here we were talking about this earlier before we came onto the show about the old days of sitting around in the newsroom waiting for the facts to come through from Nielsen, who were doing the ratings back then, and it's literally everybody would huddle around a notice board to see what the overnight ratings were. It was such a simple process. Now it seems so complicated to bring all of that together. Well done.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not. It's definitely not just me. So we still work with Nielsen. We have a number of partners. And then I have a team here that works with our suppliers and with our broadcast partners to deliver on that as well. So it's kind of a team effort with a lot of people playing a different role.
Yeah.
And we talked about some of the numbers in the intro around how kind of primetime viewership has changed, particularly on free-to-air compared to today. How would you kind of describe that shift in audience consumption behaviour and kind of the fragmentation there?
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty interesting reference actually, because I think when those days where you would get on a Sunday night you might run a movie roadblock and you might reach 80% of the population watching 7, 9 and 10 and things like that, and it's definitely changed. Look, at the moment people have more choices. I think the consumer wins, like if I'm really honest with you, like the consumer gets to choose what they want to watch, on what device they want to watch, at the time that they want to watch. So it's definitely changed, and I actually think that's a good thing. I think choice competition's always good. It means that traditional broadcasters really up the ante on what they're doing, and they've definitely been doing that with their what we call BVOD, broadcaster video on demand offering. And then for the SVOD services, we get better content, better quality with more optionality. So I think that makes it quite interesting for consumers. It makes it hard for advertisers. So the advertiser cohort are one of the groups that we serve, and for them, those days of the Sunday night roadblock that I mentioned earlier, that I may have done a few of myself when I was a media buyer early on. Those days of old are gone. You can't. The option to reach 80% of people on one night, just don't exist anymore, or become too cost prohibitive. But I think even just finding, those levels is a real challenge. So I think that the role that organisations like us play in providing good data for better decisions, to me, I think it's really critical, because it allows advertisers to determine how they get the best bang for their buck and where their money should actually go. And that's kind of, what we're here for, is we provide the currency level data for the industry to help make better choices around how they reach audiences.
Karen, what is VOZ, V-O-Z?
Well, it's basically, VOZ is the name for our combined. So look, I'll go historically. You talked about the ratings, and we got that from the meters before. Consumer behaviour meant that people were doing more consumption on different devices, and people were sometimes watching broadcast content through, their SBS iView, ABC iView, through 7Now, 9, all of these different platforms, 7+9. So what basically VOZ does is it brings together the broadcaster linear audience with the BVOD audience overnight, deduplicates so that we don't double count anyone who's watched it for confusion on one device and been captured on something else, and then actually provides a consolidated rating number. So you mentioned before, like, people getting the ratings in the morning, like they still get the ratings from the panel at 9 a.m, but that covers linear television, so from the TV set. VOZ data is available a bit later in the morning, and that will give, the content partners, agencies and clients the consolidated BVOD and linear ratings performance, and that captures the changing pattern of behaviour, also captures some of the demographics that tend to skew to more more modern device delivery consumption patterns. So younger audiences tend to watch more BVOD, whereas potentially older audiences still sit in front of the television set to some extent.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of changes, obviously, in the ratings and how that's all being reported. What a total TV measurement? I'm assuming that's just across everything. Is that right?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one, right? Because the definitions get more and more confusing as people talk about it. So look, when we talk VOZ, we talk about TV BVOD, which is sort of how we capture TV BVOD. When we talk about total TV consumption, as in what everyone's watching on the television set in the home, we report that out of our Streamscape product, and that will capture the time spent with streaming platforms and other, fast channels and different things like that. It also captures people who are watching YouTube, like the amount of time that they're watching YouTube on the television set as well. So, look, I think the definitions is kind of something I struggle with at the moment with the team, where I'm like, is it total TV? Is it total video? Is it what's watched on a television set? And is that total television? Like, I think a lot of people now struggle with the traditional definitions of those things. For me, we want to measure quality broadcast, quality content. So that's kind of where we play. There's a role for people who are watching the long tail of video content on social platforms. I love the odd dog video myself, to be honest, not a cat video, but we don't measure that sort of long tail of stuff. We tend to focus on the more quality broadcast content. But it's changed. Some things still stay the same though. So, major sporting events still get incredible numbers, incredible numbers. I have some here that I could talk to, but
let's have it.
The AFL, as a total series, delivers 14 million plus. The Australian Open Combined reach of the Australian Open was about 14.5 million. We still see some things that people will go back to the more traditional platforms for. News is one of those things, when there's a point of crisis. So, if there's floods, when the horrific events at Bondi happened towards the end of last year, we saw audiences come back to broadcast, television and watch news in droves so that they could see what's going on. And things like maths that, you'd have to be living under a rock to have missed something. Even if you don't watch it, you'd have to be living under a rock to have missed the massive juggernaut that a program like that actually has been. So, yes, people are doing lots of different things in different ways, but some things still remain sort of somewhat constant.
Yeah.
I'm personally very interested, or for the last probably 5-6 years, I've been very interested in kind of how the media industry is evolving and how it is structurally and both here and overseas, and how these kind of structural changes and evolutions affect society on a broader level. We don't need to go that deep on it today, but what do you think from a measurement standpoint and what OzTAM is doing? How do you think the Australian market differs from, let's say, the US? And would you say there are advantages to kind of the market size and differences that we've got there in terms of consolidation?
There's advantages and disadvantages for Australia. So when it comes to measurement, one of the biggest challenges we have is the size of the country. We're three, at different times in the year, we have 3 time zones. So we measure, 24 hours a day. We put out reports the day after. So we have these complexity to navigate. In relation to the media landscape, we've seen a lot of consolidation recently. We've obviously seen the merger between Seven West and Southern Cross. The more recent one with Nine acquiring QMS. So there's a lot of consolidation that's going on. I actually think the consolidation, to some extent, is a pretty good thing, because with the fragmentation of media, these businesses are not cheap to run. They're complex. To provide quality content, they need to create efficiencies somehow, especially as audience continues to fragment, because that also impacts their revenues. So I think these changes in the landscape are actually quite good. It means that we'd be able to continue experiencing good local high quality content for longer, because consolidation of those it creates efficiencies, but also means that they don't have to actually create efficiencies through a reduction in quality. So I think that's quite good. When we look compared to the US market and Australian market are very, very different. So it's a much bigger cable market over there. They've got the streaming penetration's been a bit faster, a bit higher. The share of viewing is a little bit different because they're so heavy with cable. You've got a lot more subscription over there, so a higher cost. So there's just it's a hard one to compare. I think I look sometimes to there for emerging technology and like what the future might look like, because usually we follow a pattern a few years behind. Probably I look a bit more closely to countries like the UK, who even though they're a smaller geographic size, their market setup is a little bit more similar to ours from a broadcast point of view. So, in Australia, there's only one of me, like one business like ours, so one CEO that does what we do here. So I do try and spend a bit of time with people in my roles in other countries to understand what they're experiencing and how we can learn from that here, because there's no sort of person it's not like I work at a bank where I can just ring another banker and ask them for some advice. I kind of have to seek it elsewhere. So
yeah, I think you're very true in that the US being such a different market. I think they were probably, like, the fragmentation was kind of built into that market just as a result of cable, right? And so I think it was interesting watching the streaming platforms launch their advertising products in this market, both Netflix and Amazon, and the impact that had on kind of CTV advertising. I imagine that impact was quite large in this market, given that it was, again, more of a consolidated market. How would you say that's correct, and that's had a massive change on how advertisers are approaching their strategies, and also measurement challenges as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've held a client role at Coke. I mean, we spend all of our time trying to work out how do we optimize our money to get the best return. So I think with advertisers right now, what they're trying to do is work out, well, if I spend $1, with the traditional television versus a platform like Amazon or Netflix, like what's going to get me the best bang for my buck, and how do I get, the best outcome out of that investment? So I think it's really important for them to learn and test and understand what's changing and explore new territories, because they need to fill that reach gap that's been created by that fragmentation. So for them, I think that's a real opportunity. It's also a challenge because there's a real issue around consistency of data. I mean, I'm really pleased to say that we're partnering with Netflix. So Netflix are coming into our ecosystem. They're really leaning into being compared head to head with traditional broadcast and really backing themselves with that. And we're in conversations with another number of other players, but clients need to have consistent, equally sourced, equal quality data to make decisions around where the money should go. And that's sort of the role that measurement plays, and that's the role that we hope to play for more players as they come into our ecosystem into the future.
Sorry, go Paul.
I was just asking quickly, what about Google and YouTube? How are they kind of interacting with OzTAM in this market, if at all?
Look, we've had conversations with them, and we continue conversations with them. We actually capture, as I mentioned, at a URL level, the consumption of Google for video in homes. They're an interesting organisation. They have very stringent rules around how they want to be measured, but we have very stringent rules around how we want to be measured. They have different quality perspectives, and they've got an array of different assets. We counter view at a 15-second minimum view. They counter view at 2 seconds. So, we set what we would say is a very high standard for quality for what we report out. So, will they come in or not? It's hard to say. Do we have conversations with them? Yes, we do. Where would that land? I don't think they don't want to change the way that they measure. We don't want to change the quality standards. They are working with organisations like mine in other countries, sometimes with success, sometimes without. All I would say is I think clients benefit from getting a measurement of total video, and I'm very interested in continuing the conversations that we have with them around that ambition.
Karen, one quick last question before we wrap up. Primetime, does it exist in the future?
People still love to sit on the couch and watch that television set. So, I mean, what they watch is different, but how they watch in the lounge room after their meal at the end of the day, like primetime definition is 6 till 10. Like it's still when we see, even on the streaming services, it's still where we see everybody sit down in front of the box. It's just kind of a part of what happens in most family lives. So I'd say it still exists. It's just what they watch is different.
Some things never change. We love that.
Well, it's interesting because on that, and as I said earlier, being quite interested in the intersection between kind of society and media consumption and everything. I heard someone mention this the other day that for a long time when we relied on broadcast TV, that was all we had, and there would be these moments where maths is on and everybody's sitting in the lounge room together as a family or a friendship group and watching this together and experiencing this together in one moment. But then moving to streaming services where you can watch anything you want on demand at any time of the day. So not only fragmenting that social experience, but also, I can watch anything I want at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? Versus having these actual times during the day during better hours as well. So I find that super interesting in how it's kind of affecting things.
Yeah, look, people are watching what they want to watch when they want to watch. So that's definitely the case, and without a doubt. But we still see people's day does still finish usually. For the mass of us around the same time. People will sit around the dinner table, and some will have the television on and some won't. So there'll be still those moments where everyone together. I have 3 daughters. One watches pretty much YouTube the whole time in her bedroom. The other one will watch shows with me once or twice a week, and I feel lucky that she does that. And then my other daughter will tend to sit in a different room and only watch what she wants to watch while I'm watching what I want to watch. Like, it changes, but oftentimes the moments still actually occur around a television set. 85% of viewing is still occurring on the TV set in home.
Yeah. And we've got multi-screening going on as well. I'm a big one for that. I get in trouble at home quite a lot.
So we're going to see you guys on Gogglebox soon, right?
Yes.
My house? I don't know. I'm not sure I would open my home up to reality.
You know what? I would watch that. Definitely would.
I don't like doing this stuff, guys. I'm not sure I'm going to do that.
Well, let me tell you, you've done very well. So thank you. Karen, I think we're just about run out of time, actually. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. You shared an amazing look into the world of TV ratings with us, and really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me. My pleasure.
It's been great. And to everyone watching and listening to us both here in Australia and across the globe, thank you so much for your company as well. We look forward to seeing you here next time on Media Tech Talk.
I'm Greg Collison, the head of product here at Adobe Advertising. Join me on the next Media Tech Talk, where we explore how Adobe's DSP is using Agentic AI to transform the way campaigns are run, making them more automated, more measurable, and far less manual. So here's the question. What happens as Adobe moves into Agentic AI, reducing the human effort required to run campaigns? And where will the industry see the biggest impact? Join me in the conversation that's inspiring media minds on the next Media Tech Talk.